Okay, welcome back. For those of you that are just joining, this is the second video for our social studies class, grade 11. The last video, yesterday's video, was a repeat of Friday's lecture because there were so many people missing. I felt that I should probably just put it in there. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you go and you watch the intro video that I made. It will hopefully answer your questions related to things like written responses and unit tests. I won't spend too much time talking about them today. Thank you for those of you that have watched the previous videos and those of you who have reached out to me via email. It's good to see that you are paying attention and that you're focusing on your schooling, because it is still going on. Some of us may be getting sick, but school still goes on. Now we're just doing it from home. So I want to address one email that I got related to how you're going to submit your booklets. So you would have finished your last booklet yesterday. The last lecture was done yesterday. So moving forward, whenever you get to the page that has the definitions, the fill in the or combine the sentence, the finish the sentence, and then the questions, start doing those on Google Docs. Also make sure you have a summary as well. So make sure your summary goes with it as well. And then just keep a continuous document going throughout this entire booklet, and then send that to me. For last booklet, you can either do one of two things. One, take a photo of each of the pages, the summary plus the definition, and then the definition question page. Put those all into a email and send it to me. And then just make a Google Doc for the last one, or write it in there as well on your booklet. Or you could rewrite them all into a Google Doc and send it to me. But I'm guessing that you're all going to just send a photo, so just make sure you send it to my email, and then I will take care of that. I am in the process of marking your written responses, the ones that you did last Wednesday, Thursday, one of those 2 days. I'm still marking them. So whenever you see your markup, then your mark's up, and it's been marked. Just if you want any information of why you got what you got, feel free to reach out via email, and I will write back to you with my reasonings. But today we are starting Unit 3. So if you have the booklet, the hard copy, then you have it, and continue through there. If you don't have it, then you're gonna have to go to our D2L under the content section. You'll see a tab. I will just go to it as well, just to make sure. I know it's there. Just I want to be more helpful to you all. So you're gonna resources, content, and then it is a orange. It's at the bottom. It says student activity guides. They're all there. So you can either print them out or just look at them online, depending on how you feel about killing trees. You go from it how you would like. But we are starting today, Unit 2. So this is nationalism and the Great War. The Great War, or the First World War. We're going to spend some time talking about how nationalism evolves, how it evolves in the 19th and the 20th century. So the 1800s to till the 1900s. So 1900s, this is our focus. We are going to focus today, student activity 15, national interests and the German and Italian unification. So the question we are going to hopefully answer in the summary section is, how has national interest developed? So we're going to hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll have a good understanding of that. So if you're in your booklet, this is page 2. So today, there's only one term being introduced to you, and that is national interest. So once we understand that, then hopefully we'll be able to answer the question. So just to begin, we have a history versus Napoleon TED Ed video. I would recommend you look at it because we spent some time talking about Napoleon and his role in the French Revolution, and then his role in the development of French nationalism and the nationalism of other countries. Because Napoleon spent a lot of his time in power going to war with European countries. And we're going to see what he did in two places today. We're going to look at focus our attention on Italy and Germany, because Napoleon went into both these places and shook up the way that those countries had been running countries, how those regions had been operating. And then we're going to see what happens from there. So I strongly encourage you watching this History versus Napoleon video. But let's move on. So national interests. National interests are like personal interests, but apply on a large scale. So you all have interests. I have interests. You can see behind me a bookshelf. I like to read. It's one of my interests, one of my hobbies. But when we talk about national interests, it's a larger scale because we're talking about countries and peoples and what their interests are. So all nations want the following three things: economic prosperity. All countries want to be able to become prosperous, to have wealth and power, kind of like people. Security and safety. So again, these countries and peoples, they want to be secure. They want to have safety and everyday life that isn't revolve around trying to stay alive. A little bit of peace and relaxation. And again, like people, countries will do this in terms of things like armies and police services and things like that. So we'll touch on that today. And to protect beliefs and values. Every country will have religious people in it, sometimes a majority, sometimes minorities, but this protection of beliefs and values is crucial to national interests. If we look at Canada, for example, we've created the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, essentially to protect our interests, and then that in a sense becomes our national interest. National interest is the protection of these things. So these are three examples of what all nations want. So let's continue. We're going to first focus on Italy and the unification of Italy. So if you're following along on the presentation, we are on slide number 6. And we'll go through this, and then I'll give you some key players and how things ended up for Italy. So the Italian states were occupied by France under Napoleon. So if we rewind to the 1790s, after the French Revolution, we have a Republican government. Napoleon actually will go into northern Italy and fight against the kingdoms there. So the northern Italy was made up of a few different kingdoms. The central part of Italy was known as the Papal States, so that was the Pope, and he kind of ran that part. The southern part of Italy, it had traded hands many times, but it was under the authority of Spain, and then it was under the authority of Austria. So what happens though in the north is that when Napoleon gets there, they destroy the old kingdoms that existed, and then he sets up these republics in the north. But what's happening underneath all this is there is a shared common identity emerging. A collective consciousness is starting to arise among the people, and not just the people of one kingdom or republic. Now it's all of them together are starting to get this idea. And one of the desires that they have is to be free of foreign controls. So, like I said, France, Austria, Spain have all been in there at one point in time, just kind of running things. And these people, the people of Italy, they're not really too thrilled about it. So they want to have a say in how they run things. They are very much crying out for self-determination, things that we talked about in the first unit. So, some key figures that will arise out of this movement for self-determination. First one is Giuseppe Mazzini. He is the founder of a group called the Young Italy, or Young Italians. Wrote The Duties of Man. Priority of society should be God first, nation second, and family third. So he is very much he is an Italian nationalist. He is very much in favor of creating a state of Italy. He wants to promote these values. So he wants to involve the church because the Pope and Italy, this peninsula, has been the center of Catholicism. And he wants to make sure that the idea of this new nation is also important. And it's not just whatever region you're in, it is a collective nationality now. And then family values as well. Another important figure is Camillo di Cavour. He is the Prime Minister of Piedmont, Sardinia. He is essentially beneath the king of that region. And again, he has ideas as well of creating a strong Italian state focused and led by the king of Piedmont. Vittorio Emanuele II. So we're going to see this, what happens in this region. So Piedmont, Sardinia is the north, and the island of Sardinia, it's a kingdom. And then we'll also see here the last key figure in the unification of Italy is the man who's represented on the slide here, and actually surprisingly he's also the icon I've chose to put as my picture for this YouTube channel, Giuseppe Garibaldi. So again, a very strong Italian nationalist. He is going to organize an army of nationalists, the red shirts, hence the red shirt. He is going to travel from the north with these 1,000 nationalists to the island of Sicily and essentially wage a war from Sicily onto mainland Italy in the south and work his way up to Rome. And he will unite the southern part of Italy while things are happening in the north. So right now, in this period, France is under the control of Napoleon III. So we've jumped up to about the 1860s right now. Napoleon III is a relative of Napoleon. He's active in Italian affairs, so he's very much involved in the peninsula because it's not a unified country. It's a bunch of small states that he still feels that France has authority over. He supports the Pope in Rome against outside influence. He wants to limit Austria's power, gain allies, and trade partners. So he's very much looking for support and a way to weaken a stronger enemy in Austria. He wants to maintain a good relationship with the Pope because, again, France is very much a Catholic-dominated country. So he wants to make sure that the Pope is strengthened as well. So he's going to look for allies, and he's going to figure out how to weaken Austria, who also has influence as well because of their proximity, how close they are to Italy. Places like Venice right now are very much under the control of Austria at this point. So there was a war that Napoleon III organized against Austria. And he will use the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia to essentially go to war with Austria. So on one side, you have Piedmont, Sardinia in the northern part of Italy, backed by France, and they will attack Austria in northern Italy, and they're going to win. So Austria blocked from Italian affairs now because the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia is now the dominant force in northern Italy, obviously with the support of France. They are going to have to pay for France's service. It's not mentioned here, so this is just to add on to your knowledge. The Kingdom of Italy, or the Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia, will give Nice. It is now it's a region in France. It used to belong to Italy, and it was given to the French. Essentially, a thank you for helping. Garibaldi, he's not too thrilled about it because it's actually from Nice. So it'll always be a thorn in a sore spot for him in the future. But in the north, we have a campaign against the Austrians. In the south, like I said, Garibaldi and the red shirts will conquer Napoli, and they will conquer Sicily. And that region becomes essentially under the leadership of Garibaldi. He becomes it's essentially the head of the state of that part of southern Italy. So the new Italian states offered Veneta in support of Prussia against Austria in 1866. So we are seeing the Italians do a lot of maneuvering to help the other up-and-coming states against the older regimes. In 1870, there's a Franco-Prussian War, which we will talk about when we talk about German unification. France withdraws troops from Rome to help fight against the Prussians. Italy invades and is greeted by its citizens as conquering heroes. So things kind of rapidly develop from 1860. The north is organized under the Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia. The south is under Giuseppe Garibaldi. They meet in the middle, and what happens is quite interesting. From the north, we are seeing the King of Piedmont Sardinia, Vittorio Emanuele II, and Count Camillo di Cavour. And then from the south, we have Giuseppe Garibaldi and his men. And essentially what Garibaldi does is he gives control of the south to the King of Piedmont Sardinia. So he essentially will become the king of a unified Italy. But at this point, it's not a complete and total unification because we're still missing Rome. Rome and the papal states, they don't fully unite until much later. We do still see now the Vatican is still a separate country. So essentially that will come much later. But with helping the Prussians fight against the Austrians and the French, Italy will be unified. So national interests, we saw with people like Giuseppe Mazzini, his ideas of supporting religion, of supporting family, and then supporting nation. Starting here. Now we'll see a united Italy for the first time since the fall of the Roman Empire. So it's been a long time coming. And the people are happy to finally be rid of foreign influence. So again, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to comment them or to email me them as well. If you're following along on slide number 8, there is a video of Italian unification. It's 10 minutes long. It sums up the campaign quite nicely, so I'd encourage you to watch that. On slide 9, we see the unification of Italy, the process. So we have the Italian states in 1858. So that gray area, that is the papal states. The bottom is the Kingdom of Sicily, and or two Sicilies. The green part, that is the Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia. By 1859 all the way to 1870, you see the pieces of Italy start coming together, and then we'll have a unified country. And then after this, then we'll start to see Italy expand itself outwards into places like Africa. So that is the Italian unification. Now we're going to switch over to German unification. Also a really crucial part of the 18th century, moving into the 19th 19th, moving into the 20th. My bad. So, national identity emerged in the Germany's following the Napoleonic Wars. So, if you're following, here is a map of the German states. These are this is how Germany had been for much of the early modern history of Europe. It was at once called the Holy Roman Empire, which is ironically named because it's neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, but a small it's a bunch of small states, German states, put together and held together by the big country or the big kingdoms like Prussia, Bavaria, and Austria, and others to name a few. Those are just to name a few. When Napoleon comes into play, Napoleon will invade this territory, and essentially he will destroy the Holy Roman Empire. He will reshuffle and reorganize the things. So the Confederation of the Rhine is what Napoleon will create. So the Confederation of the Rhine is essentially the new system that will be created. So we have 39 independent states, down from the 300 before Napoleon. So it's a total reshuffling of things. The two most powerful regions now will be Prussia and Austria. So Prussia is, they're very militaristic. They are a very conservative people. They're united ethnically because they're all German, increased in power following the Napoleonic Wars, and they have a very, very well-equipped and well-trained military. So if you were following those arrows, that's Prussia in a sense. Their capital is Berlin, so you're going to see that they play a big role. Austria is a large and powerful empire. It's the part in the yellow, but it also extends out as well. And it's very multicultural. The Kingdom of Austria right now would include in this period, which is around 1815, 1820, would include Austrians, Czechs, Poles, Hungarians, Slovenians, Slovakians, Serbians, Bosnians, Ukrainians. I hope you can see it is super multicultural. So there is not one ethnic group that is, they're all one ethnicity. It's a multicultural and multi-ethnic empire, kind of held together by the Austrians. So we're going to see how that plays out with the unification of Germany. So Greater Germany is all the countries with German people. That would include Austria as well. There is this idea of forming a country that would just involve all the German peoples. So this idea would include Austria, but there are some problems. Many non-Germans would come along. So, like I said before, we're talking about Czechs, Slovaks, Slovenians, Poles, etc., etc., etc. These people would have been brought into this idea of a greater Germany if it was to be unified with Austria as well. So again, if we're following along the map on slide 11, that part in the red, the boundaries, that would have been essentially this new German kingdom. And then there was the question of who would actually run this new country, Austria or Prussia. So Prussia being predominantly German, a great military, but its size wasn't as large in comparison to Austria. There would have been conflict because they're on the one side, like I said, one ethnicity, and then on the other side we have a multi-ethnic empire that has been around for hundreds of years. So this idea of who would run it will start to create tension, and then from tension we will see the change. Then there's this idea of Little Germany, all the German people except Austria. So this idea is floating around, and it would be dominated by Prussia because of the armies that they have. It's well equipped, well trained, and it could potentially dominate the rest of the German states. The problem is that it wouldn't include all German people because Austria would be excluded. So you wouldn't have the Austrian Germans involved as well. So there is that question of which direction are we going to go. We kind of get the answer thanks to the man being introduced on slide 13, Otto von Bismarck. He is a Prussian Junker. A Junker is essentially a noble person. So if you want to just say a Prussian noble, you can, but the German term for it is Junker. And he's a politician. He will become chancellor under the Prussian King Wilhelm I. So Wilhelm I is the king of Prussia. He will make Bismarck the chancellor of, essentially the prime minister of Prussia. And it's this man here who will create Germany. His ideas, his desire, his influence is what's going to spark the movement towards creating Germany. And he's going to do it through, quote, blood and iron. He used this idea of realpolitik to guide his policies. So he's going to avoid theocratical solutions to problems, instead use real or practical solutions. So he is going to be okay with making alliances when he needs to. And he's going to be okay with going to war when he needs to. It's very much a practical, how can I get things done? This is what Bismarck is going to do. And he wants, because obviously he's Prussian, he wants Prussia to dominate Germany. One thing that we have to understand about Prussia and the Prussian idea is that they very much are strong-willed, and they are very disciplined in terms of military. The country is essentially run as if the entire country is the military. So they have a very strong understanding of how a society should run, and they are the ones that are going to take the lead in this. So there's a video here, a 10-minute video about the German unification, and it'll go through step by step the process of unification, the wars, the key people, the key alliances, and just with some nice imagery. So I strongly encourage you to watch this as well. So the best way to get a country going is to fight for it. So what Bismarck does is he does such a thing. So he will first pick his target, and his target is going to be the Kingdom of Denmark. So in 1864, he is going to declare war on Denmark. And it's going to be called the War of Schleswig. So Schleswig-Holstein is the lowest part of Denmark. So if you're following along the map on slide 15, it is the lowest part that is connected to what we would now call Germany. And he's going to actually bring along the Austrians as well. Because after Napoleon is defeated, we have something called the Congress of Vienna. Essentially, they're reorganizing Europe after Napoleon kind of threw everything apart and kind of ruined it all for the old empires. So that Schleswig-Holstein is given to Denmark. Holstein is populated mostly with Germans. Schleswig is half German and half Danish. So if we're talking about creating a German empire, we got to start bringing in some German people. So they first choose the war with Denmark. So in 1863, the King of Denmark plans to consolidate the two duchies or regions. So Bismarck took exception and gathered support from Austria and defeated Denmark. Prussia would administer Schleswig, and Austria would administer Holstein. Important port of Kiel, don't know how to say it. The port of Kiel was important to bring goods in, and it would be taken. Prussia coveted Holstein though, because they wanted to take it over. So the first war is fought, and Prussia is successful. However, now they want to get rid of Austria, because Austria is way too involved in the German affairs. So they want to get rid of them. So Bismarck needs to defeat Austria in order to secure control of Germany. Because the other states, no one of them is strong enough to resist the Prussian influence, both militarily and socially. But Austria is big enough to continue to be a nuisance. So Bismarck knows that his next war has to be with Austria. So the Austro-Prussian War starts in 1866, and it lasts 7 weeks. It's very quick. Because and it shows you the discipline and the military strength that Prussia has. So superior technology that the Prussians had won the war in 7 weeks. Prussia now would take control of Holstein as well. Prussia gained a lot of support and annexed a lot of the Confederation. So the smaller states are starting to realize what's happening. And they have two choices. Either they wait for the Prussians to come with an army, or they just give their support to Prussia. So there's a lot of them that just start to join. So Bismarck was lobbying for complete control of the Confederation, so these German states. So it's a slow process, but we're starting to see Austria is now out, and Prussia is now starting to dominate that northern part of Germany. So yes, Bismarck used politics to move his forces into Holstein, which was an act of war. Bismarck had planned this securing France's neutrality and the support of Italy in return for Venetia after the defeat of Austria. So, like I said, Bismarck is very much an opportunist, and he understands the use of alliances, the realpolitik. So he has neutralized France from this conflict. He's saying, stay out of this. This is between Austria and Prussia. We will deal with this stuff. And France is more than happy to see Austria suffer. But what France is not aware of is that Italy is also getting involved, and Italy has been promised the province of Venetia, so that is where Venice is now, in support of once they are able to defeat Austria. So the Italians will attack from the south, while the Prussians attack from the north. So we see Austria is defeated, and they are going to have to bow out of any influence they had in Germany at this time. So now Bismarck has taken care of two regions, the north with Denmark and the south with Austria. Now he turns his attention to the west, and that's going to be with the Franco-Prussian War, which is from 1870 to 1871. It's, again, a very quick war as well. So what happens here is the Spanish throne is vacant in 1868. The throne willed to a cousin of the King of Prussia. So we have an empty throne. According to the will, it is supposed to go to the King of Prussia's cousin. This would kind of, and no surprise, would be upsetting to France, because now it would have blood relatives on either side of its borders. So we see Bismarck respond, and essentially he is going to force France. He's not going to force, but he's going to entice them into war through the Ems telegram. So France declares war on the German states, unified against France. France doesn't have any allies. Italy wants Rome. So what happens is France is going to try to fight against the Germans, but the Prussians are so far ahead in terms of military skill and training and technology that they're quickly defeated. And actually, Napoleon III is actually captured in the process. He's captured when his army is defeated, and he's forced to abdicate. And that's where we get the Third Republic is declared. Um, when the Germans and when they reach and they're in Versailles, we are going to see, if you're following along on slide 21, Wilhelm the First of Prussia is declared Wilhelm the First of the German Empire. So if you're following, there is a painting that is done. This is in the Hall of Mirrors. So this is where the kings of France used to sit. If you're following again, the man in the white military uniform standing at the bottom of the stairs, that's actually Bismarck. The one who's standing on the top, kind of facing out with the killer mustache, that's Wilhelm. So Germany has been unified by 3 wars, thanks to Bismarck's clever tactics and his alliance making. So the territory of Alsace-Lorraine are ceded to Prussia in the treaty that is signed to end the war. This territory is very much rich in mines and minerals, and its a business sector. So in 1871, Germany officially unifies and the new German Empire is proclaimed. So again, if we're following along, on slide 22, that map that you see there, that is the new German Empire. The part in the circle is Alsace-Lorraine. That will be a sore spot for France throughout the First World War, because it had been a part of France, and now it was a part of Germany. So that is how Germany looks now. So what we have seen today is the birth of 2 countries. So how is national interest developed? Well, we can talk about things like what national interests are to different people. So we saw the Italians and what their interests were. They wanted to unite to get rid of outside influence. You had people like Mazzini establishing what priorities for society would look like. We see the wars that were fought there, so it was something that they were going to bleed and die over. We see Germany, this idea of unifying the German people, deciding, okay, what's that going to look like? Is it going to be this greater Germany with including Austria or without? We see that through Wilhelm and Bismarck, it is without Austria. So we see national interest, things like security, making sure that the German people were protected. Alliances. What was not mentioned here is that when all the wars are done and Germany is unified, Bismarck, who will become the Chancellor of Germany, he makes alliances quickly with people like Russia, with France, so that his borders are protected, so that there's this security, so that they can start to develop a kingdom and expand outwards. After Germany is unified, you're going to see them go into places like Africa, and they're going to go into the South Pacific and claim territory. So we do see national interests are starting to develop, and we see the birth of 2 new kingdoms in Italy and Germany, and it's going to start to spark the expansion of nationalism in these countries. People will start to see themselves as German and as Italian, and not just as either Bavarian or Hanoverian or Prussian in Germany, or as people from Piedmont, people from Sicily, or people from Venice. They come together as Italian and as German. So hopefully that made sense for you. Again, I encourage you, if you have any questions, to comment them or email them to me. So we're done for today. Um, Tomorrow we'll pick up on imperialism and nationalism. Should be exciting stuff. So please make sure you keep following along with these videos. And yeah, stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow.